Hello class, welcome to week 3. So, first of all, again, I just want to say that I am liking most of the work. I think that the slide adaptation that I made to the assignment for the Sunday's paper will be helping a lot in terms of making it a little bit easier for you to write something. So again, I don't know. You know, if you're having any kind of confusion at this point about what I'm expecting in the Sunday papers, then please just give me a call. We had some misunderstandings I had with some students, a while back, especially when we had some complications with the textbook. By now, I think everybody is mainly on board, and we're doing fine. And so I hope that at this point, most issues are resolved. But ultimately, some of you that are struggling to keep up, or if you're having problems, it's your job to contact me and try to, have a discussion about things. If you start getting behind, you can't just expect to turn in late work and get full credit or any credit for it. Once the due date is done, it's done. Now, I have been very lenient about work that's like a few hours later, and to be honest, you don't always have to ask for permission on that. I mean, I have a deadline because I basically want you to have the work done by that time, but I don't want you to get too hung up. I mean, ultimately, once I start grading, I should see your work. It should be there, and I usually am not getting to grade until a day or two after the assignments are done, but it should be there when I want to start grading. If you are behind and you want to mention to me that, hey, the work's coming soon, that's good to do. Okay. Anyhow, moving on from that, I think a lot of you really, were blown away by the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Bible story. Just as I always was. That I did originally. Now, I was exposed to this knowledge, believe it or not, from the religious organization that I grew up around. And it's interesting how sometimes things like that, some people, will use stories that are similar to prove that something is valid, or to try to prove that it's not valid, right? Isn't that interesting how you can look at this in different ways? I just thought I would point this out, that there's two strange facts that I just thought you might find of interest. That there are flood legends all throughout the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh and the biblical story are much, much more similar on so many levels. Not all of them take that same similarity, but we see many flood legends. Now, this initially looks like, hey, perhaps the biblical story, as the Epic of Gilgamesh, is reflecting an event that actually took place around the world, especially when you're seeing different flood stories. The other conundrum, though, that adds to this is that geologically, in the geological record, a global flood that took place like this doesn't show up in the geological record, according to the scientific point of view. And I've studied this in more detail over the years, and I can see why scientists certainly have come to that conclusion. So then, what do we make of this, right? But here's the other thing. Didn't we just talk about how all these civilizations, they gravitate towards places with water because water is life, right? But what's the other problem? You live on near water, there's floods. And this is a precarious way that you live. I mean, think about how many people in the world to this day live in areas that have, you go next to the water and it's important, but then you can get too much water. The water kills you because, or destroys entire villages. Think about, earthquake zones. Even now we know we live in California right now. I currently live in Portland, Oregon. For those of you who don't know that, I used to teach in face to face in Portland, Oregon, but I mean in at MJC. But now I'm living up here in Portland, and I've been teaching with MJC ever since I was teaching in person years ago. But I live in an earthquake zone. Many in California live in an earthquake zone. Civilization kind of gravitates around these like dangerous areas now. Is that something? Does that have something to do with it as well? Just food for thought. It's interesting, right? When we just think about these stories and what we see pop up, and then what we see in the science, and just I don't know. It's in any case, I think you get what I'm saying. It's an interesting set of things to think about, right? I feel like I was going to mention one other thing on that. Oh well, it slipped my mind. Now we're going to be covering Egypt, and I really take a different approach to Egypt as well. Actually, I'm always trying to add a little something that you're not going to get from somewhere else, which is that most people know that Egypt and the pyramids are synonymous. And there is this kind of caricaturization of what an Egyptian is. There was a pop song that was popular when I was younger by the Bangles called "Walk Like an Egyptian," and then the video they're doing this walk like an Egyptian, right? But a lot has happened in Egypt since the pyramids. To this day, Egypt is the second largest military aid recipient of the U.S. government, for better or for worse. In the Arab world, because now it's an Arab speaking majority nation, a Muslim majority nation, it produces most of the films that are watched in the Arab world. So it's a cultural powerhouse within the broader Arab world. And in the initial stages of Christianity, Egypt was one of the most was tremendously influential. Now I'm not talking about even the historical discussions about whether or not Egypt, ancient Egyptian religion influenced Christianity. I'm talking about Egyptian Christians influencing Christianity on quite a major level. And I kind of discussed that a little bit in some of my discussions. So I hope you find that interesting, which is why I'm posting also this just this little clip of the Lord's Prayer in Coptic. Coptic means Egyptian. I have that one video also there on the link of the Coptic Church. I'm actually not trying to promote, I'm not trying to proselytize anybody. I am not a convert to Coptic Christianity. I just thought it would be an interesting part of the legacy of Egypt that many of you just are not aware of, and I just thought you would really appreciate it and you'd find it interesting. Okay, so that's mainly what I wanted to do, and if there's any questions, of course, again, feel free to ask me, and we'll be in touch. Otherwise, have a great week.